When I tried to open the refrigerator in my own kitchen, she slapped my hand. Just like that, like I was a naughty child stealing candy. The sound echoed in the silence of the early morning, and for a moment, I could not believe what had just happened. I stood paralyzed, staring at my reddened hand, feeling the physical sting that was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt inside. Vanessa looked at me with eyes full of contempt, as if I were an annoying insect in her path, and said with an icy voice that I will never forget, "Where do you think you are going without permission?" I could not answer. The words got stuck in my throat. I felt like my own house had become a prison where I was the intruder. And then I heard the voice of Michael, my son, the boy I carried in my womb for 9 months, the one I breastfed, the one I took care of every night when he had a fever, saying something that broke my soul in two. My wife is the owner of the house now. Even to breathe, you need to ask her for permission. At that moment, my world collapsed. Not because of the slap, not because of her words, but because my own son was betraying me. I felt as if the floor opened up beneath my feet and swallowed me whole. I was 62 years old, and I never imagined I would end up like this, being humiliated in my own home, the same one I'd built with so much effort alongside my late husband. The walls that once echoed with laughter and love now seemed to close in on me, suffocating me. I looked at Michael, looking for some trace of the son I knew, but what I saw was a stranger. A man completely dominated, with empty eyes, repeating his wife's words as if they were a sacred commandment. I wondered at what moment I lost him, at what moment he stopped being my boy to become the puppet of this woman. Vanessa crossed her arms over her chest and smiled. That smile had nothing human about it. It was pure, distilled cruelty. "Now go back to your room, Linda," she said, using my name as if it were an insult, "and the next time you are hungry, you ask me politely. There are rules here, and you are going to follow them. Understood?" I nodded because I could not do anything else. My legs were trembling, and I felt that if I opened my mouth, only a broken sob would come out. I turned around and walked toward my room, feeling their stares stuck in my back like knives. Every step weighed on me as if I were carrying the whole world on my shoulders. I closed the door to my room and let myself fall onto the bed. The tears began to roll down my cheeks uncontrollably. I cried in silence, biting my lips so as not to make noise, because even to cry, I needed permission in my own house. My stomach roared with hunger, but the emotional pain was much stronger than any physical need. How had I gotten here? How did I allow this to happen? The questions tortured me while I looked at the ceiling of my room, that ceiling that I painted myself years ago when my husband was still alive. I felt like a stranger in my own life, as if someone had stolen my existence and left me only the empty shell. I thought about Robert, my late husband, and wondered what he would say if he could see this. He was always a man of principles, a man who would never have allowed anyone to treat me like this. He would have confronted Michael, he would have made him listen to reason. But Robert had been 6 feet under for 3 years, and I was completely alone in this nightmare. I remembered the night Michael called me 6 months ago with that desperate voice that no mother can ignore. "Mom, I need your help," he said. "Vanessa and I are going through a difficult time. I lost my job, and we cannot pay the rent. Could we stay with you just for a while? I promise it will be temporary." How was I going to refuse? He was my son, my only son, the most important person in my life after Robert. Of course I told him yes. Of course I opened the doors of my house without thinking twice. I never imagined I was inviting the devil into my home. At first, everything seemed normal. Vanessa was polite, even pleasant. She helped me with some housework. She smiled when I looked at her. She called me mother-in-law with apparent affection. Michael seemed relieved to have a roof over his head and constantly promised that he would soon find work and they would leave. "It is only temporary, Mom," he repeated every week. But weeks turned into months, and I began to notice small changes. Vanessa started reorganizing my kitchen without asking for permission. She moved my pots to places where I could not reach them easily. She changed the bathroom towels for ones she bought, leaving mine stored in a drawer as if they were trash. Small invasions that I ignored because I did not want to cause conflict. Then she started with the suggestions. Linda, do you not think it would be better if you had dinner earlier? Michael and I need privacy at night. Oh, Linda, try not to make so much noise in the morning, you wake us up. Every suggestion was a disguised order, and I like a fool obeyed to keep the peace. Michael never said anything. When I tried to talk to him about Vanessa's behavior, he simply shrugged his shoulders and said, "She is stressed about the financial situation, Mom, give her time." It was always, give her time, it was always have patience, it was always me who had to give in. One day, Vanessa decided that my television schedule was inappropriate because she wanted to watch her shows. Another day, she determined that I could not use the washing machine on weekends because it was her time to wash their clothes. And Michael nodded to everything like an obedient dog following orders from his master. But nothing prepared me for what would come next. Nothing prepared me for the moment when my own house would stop being mine and I would become a prisoner in the place where I spent the best years of my life. The storm was just beginning, and I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Everything began to change for real 3 months ago, when Vanessa announced during dinner that she had made some important decisions to improve coexistence in the house. I remember she left the silverware on the table with a sharp blow that made me jump in my chair. Michael looked at her with that expression of sickly adoration that turned my stomach. "Starting tomorrow," said Vanessa with a voice so firm she seemed to be leading a corporate meeting, "we are going to establish clear rules. This house needs order and discipline." I looked at her without understanding, hoping Michael would intervene, say something, anything. But he just nodded, as if all that made perfect sense. "Rules?" I asked timidly, feeling my voice tremble. "Vanessa, this is my house. I do not understand why we need rules." She looked at me as if I had just said the stupidest thing in the world. She sighed with exasperation and crossed her arms. That gesture I already knew, which meant she was about to tell me something unpleasant. "Precisely for that reason, we need rules, Linda, because this is your house, and you have let it become chaos. Michael and I cannot live like this. If we are going to stay here, things will be done my way." The way she pronounced my way froze my blood. She was not suggesting, she was imposing, and Michael was still sitting there in silence, betraying me with his indifference. The next day, a list appeared, stuck to the refrigerator. A long list written in Vanessa's perfect handwriting detailing everything I could and could not do in my own house. I read every line, feeling indignation growing in my chest like a wild animal wanting to get out. Kitchen schedule. Linda can use the kitchen only between 8 and 9 in the morning and between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. Outside of those hours is the kitchen Vanessa's exclusive territory. Exclusive territory in my own house. I kept reading with trembling hands. Bathroom use. Linda must shower before 7 in the morning or after 10 at night so as not to interfere with the couple's routine. My lifelong routine, the shower I took every morning at 8 while listening to the news on the radio, no longer mattered. I had to adapt to them. Living room use. Friday and Saturday nights are exclusive for Michael and Vanessa. Linda must remain in her room after 8 in the evening. They were banishing me to my room as if I were an old piece of furniture that is in the way in the living room. The list continued with more than 20 points, each one more absurd and humiliating than the last. I ripped the list off the refrigerator with so much force that I tore a corner. I went straight to the room where Michael and Vanessa were still sleeping. I knocked on the door insistently, feeling the rage run through my veins like boiling lava. Michael. I need to talk to you now." Vanessa opened the door wearing a pink silk robe that I had never seen, probably bought with the money I gave Michael for his expenses. She looked at me with annoyance as if I were an annoying salesperson interrupting her morning. "What is wrong, Linda? We were sleeping." "This," I said, shaking the list in front of her face. This is what is wrong. Who do you think you are to set rules in my house?" My voice came out louder than I intended, years of accumulated frustration, finally finding an outlet. Behind Vanessa appeared Michael, rubbing his eyes, disheveled and confused. "Mom, what is happening?" He asked with that boyish voice he used when he wanted to avoid trouble. But he was no longer a boy. He was a 35-year-old man who had chosen his wife over his mother, and that choice was destroying me little by little. "What is happening is that your wife has put a list of rules on my refrigerator as if this were her house, and I were an unwanted guest." "Are you going to allow this, Michael? Are you really going to allow her to treat me like this?" I looked at him pleadingly, looking for some trace of the loving son who used to defend his mother from anything. Vanessa stepped forward before Michael could answer. "Those rules are necessary. Linda, you cannot keep living as if you were alone. Now we are 3 people in this house, and we need organization. Or do you prefer that we continue living in disorder?" "Disorder?" I repeated in disbelief. "I lived in this house for 40 years with my husband, and there was never disorder. The disorder arrived when you two arrived." The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them, raw and honest. I saw Vanessa's face harden, her eyes narrowing like those of a snake ready to attack. "Michael," she said without stop looking at me, "tell your mother that if she does not like the rules, maybe she should look for another place to live." The silence that followed was deafening. I waited for Michael to explode to tell his wife that she was completely crazy, that this was his mother's house and no one was going to kick her out of here. But Michael just sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and said, "Mom, Vanessa is right. The rules will help us all get along better. It is not a big deal. They are just some schedules." I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. My own son was taking her side, validating this madness, turning me into the villain of my own story. "It is not a big deal," I whispered, feeling tears starting to sting my eyes. "Michael, they are taking my house from me. They are taking my life. How can you not see it?" I reached out my hand toward him, an instinctive maternal gesture seeking to reconnect with my son. But he took a step back, moving away from me, choosing distance. "You are exaggerating, Mom. No one is taking anything from you. We're just trying to make this work for everyone. If we could leave, we would have already done it. But we do not have money. We need you to be understanding." Understanding. That word became the mantra that Michael would repeat during the following months, every time I tried to defend myself. Vanessa smiled with satisfaction, knowing she had won. "I am glad you understand. Michael, your mother needs to learn that things have changed." She turned around and entered the room again, leaving me standing there with my son, feeling the abyss between us becoming bigger and impossible to cross. "How can you let her manipulate you like that?" I asked him in a low voice, a last attempt to make him react. "Your father would be very disappointed to see you like this." Michael turned into a man without a spine. I know they were harsh words, but it was the truth, and someone had to tell him. Michael's face hardened. "Do not bring Dad into this. He is not here, and you have no idea what he would think. Vanessa is my wife, and I am going to support her. If you cannot respect that, then we have a problem." He turned his back on me and closed the door in my face. Literally. The sound of that door closing echoed in my chest like the closing of a coffin. I stayed there, standing in the hallway with the crumpled list still in my hand, feeling my world crumbling. I had lost my son. I had lost him to a manipulative woman who had found the perfect victim. An insecure, unemployed, vulnerable man, easy to control. I went back to my room, dragging my feet, suddenly feeling like a 100-year-old woman. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the photographs on my nightstand. Robert and I on our wedding day, young and full of dreams. Michael as a baby, chubby and smiling in my arms. A family photo at the beach, everyone laughing under the sun, when everything broke. From that day on, I followed the rules. Not because I agreed, but because I did not have the strength to fight. Every morning I woke up at 6 to shower before the forbidden time. I cooked in the narrow margins of time Vanessa had assigned me. I locked myself in my room on Friday and Saturday nights like a prisoner serving a sentence. And the worst of all was seeing Michael every day walking next to him in the hallways of my house without recognizing him. The son I raised, the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world, now looked at me as if I were an obstacle in his life. Vanessa had transformed him completely, and I did not know how to get him back. The following weeks were a silent nightmare. Every day, Vanessa found new ways to remind me that I was no longer the owner of my own life. She started reorganizing the whole house according to her taste, without consulting me, as if my 40 years living here meant absolutely nothing. One day, I arrived from grocery shopping and discovered she had moved all the living room furniture. My favorite armchair, that one where Robert and I used to sit to watch movies on Sunday nights, was now cornered against the wall, almost hidden behind a huge plant she had bought. In its place, a new gray sofa occupied the center of the room. "I bought it with the money Michael saved," she said when she saw me looking with my mouth open. We both knew Michael did not have a job, that the money came from my pension, but she dared to lie to my face. "You did not consult me," I said, trying to keep calm, although I felt my chest burning with indignation. "You could have asked me before changing everything." Vanessa did not even look up from her cell phone. She was sitting on her new sofa with her legs crossed, painting her nails an intense red color that reminded me of blood. "I do not need your permission to improve this house, Linda. It was old and depressing. Now at least it has some style." The contemptuous way she said old and depressing hit me like a slap. She was not talking only about the furniture. She was talking about me, about my life, about everything Robert and I built together. I tried to talk to Michael that night, but he already had his automatic answer prepared. "Mom, the old sofa was very worn out. Vanessa is just trying to make the house prettier. You should thank her instead of complaining. Thank her for spending my money on things I did not ask for erasing the memories of my husband from this house, for transforming my home into something unrecognizable." But that was just the beginning. Vanessa began inviting her friends to the house without warning me. They arrived in a group, loud and invasive, occupying the living room as if it were a public cafe. I locked myself in my room, listening to their laughter and their conversations, feeling like a stranger in my own space. Once I went out to go to the bathroom, and one of them looked me up and down with evident contempt. "She is your mother-in-law?" she asked Vanessa in a tone she did not bother to lower. "Poor thing, it must be hard living as a freeloader at your age." Her friends laughed, and I felt the humiliation burning me inside. Vanessa said nothing to defend me. She just smiled and changed the subject, leaving me standing there like a fool while everyone ignored me. She started controlling what I ate. She said I needed to diet, that at my age I should take better care of myself. She eliminated from the pantry everything I liked. The oatmeal cookies I ate with my coffee in the mornings, the chocolate I kept for difficult moments, even the strawberry jam Robert used to buy me every month. "Those things have too much sugar. Linda, they are not healthy," she said while filling the shelves with her expensive organic products that I ended up paying for. When I dared to buy something for myself, something small that gave me even a moment of happiness, Vanessa would find it and throw it in the trash. "I told you no sugars, Linda. Why do you not listen to me?" And Michael, my own son, nodded as if she were doing a favor, as if controlling every aspect of my life were an act of love and not cruelty. One afternoon, I decided to cook the pot roast Michael had always liked, that recipe my mother taught me, and that had been in our family for generations. I wanted to recover even a moment of connection with my son, remind him of the days when we were a happy family. I spent all afternoon in the kitchen during my small window of permitted time, putting all my love into that dish. When I served dinner, Vanessa smelled the roast and wrinkled her nose with disgust. "What is this? It smells terrible." My heart shrank. "It is Michael's favorite roast," I said, trying to smile. "He used to love it when he was a boy." I looked at Michael, hoping he would remember that he would say something nice, that he would give me even a crumb of affection. But Vanessa spoke first. "Michael no longer eats that type of heavy food. We are watching our diet, remember. Besides, I had already prepared salads for dinner." She pointed toward the refrigerator where indeed there were 2 salads perfectly arranged in glass containers. Only 2 salads. One for her, one for Michael. None for me. "I ate in my permitted schedule," she added with that fake smile I hated so much. "I did not know you were going to cook, although you should have told me. The rules say you must coordinate with me before using the kitchen outside your schedule." It was not true. I had cooked exactly in my assigned time, but arguing with her was useless. She always found a way to make me look like the guilty one. Michael did not even taste the roast. He ate his salad in silence while I looked at the pot full of food that no one was going to eat. All that afternoon wasted, all that love rejected. That night, I threw the roast in the trash and cried over the sink, trying not to make noise so they would not hear me. The days turned into an endless cycle of small humiliations that accumulated like stones on my chest. Vanessa criticized my clothes, saying I dressed like an old woman and that it was embarrassing when we went out together. She criticized my way of speaking, my way of walking, my way of existing. And Michael never said anything, never defended me, only nodded or looked away. He stopped calling me Mom. Now he only said Linda with that impersonal tone you use with an acquaintance, not with the woman who gave you life. Every time I heard my name in his mouth without that Mom in front, I felt I died a little inside. Vanessa had managed to erase even the most sacred bond between a mother and her son. I started to be afraid in my own house, afraid of making noise, afraid of taking up space, afraid of breathing too loud. I walked on tiptoes through the hallways like a ghost, trying not to bother, trying not to exist too much. My own presence had become something undesirable, and I was shrinking every day more, making myself smaller, disappearing. One night, I heard Vanessa talking on the phone with someone. Her voice went through the thin walls of my house. "Do not worry, I almost have her where I want her," she said, laughing. "It is just a matter of time before she decides to leave herself. And when that happens, this house will be completely ours." Michael already signed the papers I gave him. The fool did not even read them. My blood froze. What papers? What was she talking about? I stayed glued to the wall of my room, holding my breath, trying to hear more. Yes, the lawyer said that with that signature, it is enough. When she leaves or something happens, Michael inherits everything automatically, and I, as his wife, will have rights over everything. That stupid old woman does not even imagine what is coming. I felt nausea. Vanessa was not only taking my house from me in life, she was planning to keep everything legally. And Michael, my naive and manipulated son, had signed something without even consulting me. The level of betrayal was so deep I could not process it. My own son was helping to rob me, although probably he did not even know it. The next day, I tried to talk to Michael about what I had heard. "Son, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you sign any document recently? Something related to the house or inheritances?" He looked at me confused for a second, then uncomfortable. "Vanessa asked me to sign some papers from the lawyer. She said it was to protect us legally in case something happened to you, so that everything would be easier, and you did not think to consult me." I asked, feeling how my voice broke. "You did not think that maybe I should know about documents that have to do with my house?" Michael shrugged his shoulders, that gesture of indifference he had perfected in these months. "Vanessa said it was normal that all families do this. I did not want to bother you with legal nonsense." Legal nonsense. My heritage, my home, my entire life reduced to legal nonsense. "Michael, your wife is manipulating you. She is planning to keep everything. Do you not see it?" But before he could answer, Vanessa appeared as she always appeared at the exact moment to interfere. Filling Michael's head with nonsense again, Linda. Do you not get tired of creating problems? She looked at me with those cold and calculating eyes. Michael, tell your mother to stop inventing conspiracies. She is paranoid because of her age. And Michael, like the perfect puppet he had become, looked at me and said, Mom, Vanessa is right. You are seeing problems where there are none. In that moment, I knew I had completely lost my son. There was no way to make him see the truth. Vanessa had built a wall so solid between us that my words no longer reached him. I was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no visible escape. Things got worse in ways I never imagined possible. Vanessa began to control even the air I breathed in my own house. She decided that my room needed renovation, and one day, while I was at the bank collecting my pension, she entered and took out all my things. When I returned, I found boxes piled up in the hallway and my most precious belongings thrown without any care. What did you do? I screamed when I saw her coming out of my room with a bag full of my photographs. Those are my things. You cannot touch them. Vanessa did not even flinch. She left the bag on the floor and dusted off her hands as if she had been handling trash. Relax. Linda, I am just organizing. Your room was a mess full of old junk that no one needs. I opened one of the boxes and my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. There were the love letters Robert wrote me during our courtship, the drawings Michael made in kindergarten, the shawl my mother knitted for me before dying. Everything crumpled and mixed with old clothes without any respect, without any care. These things are my life, I said with tears rolling down my cheeks. They are not junk, they are my memories. Well, your memories take up too much space, replied Vanessa, crossing her arms. Besides, I need that closet for my clothes. The one in our room is already full. Our room? The master bedroom that had been mine and Robert's for decades was now theirs. And now they also wanted my closet, my space, everything I had left. I do not plan to give you my closet, I said, trying to sound firm, although my whole body was trembling. You already have the master bedroom, the big bathroom, half the house. My room is the only thing I have left. Vanessa smiled that snake smile I already knew well. Well, then I suppose these boxes will stay here in the hallway. It would be a shame if someone tripped over them and got hurt. It was a veiled threat. If I did not give in, she would destroy my things, throw them away, make them disappear. I saw it in her eyes, that calculated cruelty she had perfected. I swallowed hard and nodded, defeated. Okay, you can use the closet. Her smile widened. I knew you would see reason. Linda, see, when you cooperate, everything is easier. That night, I put my most precious memories in a small shoebox that I hid under my bed. Robert's letters, the photos of Michael as a baby. The engagement ring I no longer wore because Vanessa said it was old-fashioned. Everything I had left of my previous life now fit in a box that I had to hide as if I were a criminal. Vanessa started inviting Michael out without me, something they had never done before. Let us go to the movies, she said, taking Michael by the arm. Just the two of us. We need couple time. And they left, leaving me alone in the house, in my house, feeling like an intruder who should be grateful they allowed her to stay. When they returned, they always brought takeout food, but only for the two of them. The smell of pizza or fried chicken filled the house while I was in my room with an empty stomach, wondering at what moment my life had turned into this. Once Michael knocked on my door and offered me a piece of pizza. We brought extra in case you were hungry. Before I could accept, I heard Vanessa's voice from the living room. Michael, come here. That pizza is for tomorrow's lunch. You cannot go around giving it away. And Michael, as always, obeyed. He shrugged his shoulders and told me sorry before closing my door. He did not even have the courage to stay to confront his wife, to choose me even for once. The humiliations became part of my daily routine. Vanessa started leaving me lists of chores to do: wash her clothes, clean her bathroom, cook her favorite meals. When I protested, she said it was the least I could do since I lived for free in the house. For free. In my own house that I paid for with the money from my work for years. One day I dared to refuse. I am not going to wash your clothes, Vanessa. I am not your maid. Her face transformed into a mask of fury. "Oh, no. Well, then I want you to pay me rent. If you are not going to contribute with work, contribute with money. $500 a month for your room. $500, I repeated in disbelief. This is my house. I do not have to pay you anything. Vanessa got close to me, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, the one she bought with my money. This house will be Michael's someday, and Michael is my husband. So technically, I have as much right as you. Now wash my clothes or pay me. I did not have $500 extra. My pension barely covered the house bills, the food, and the expenses Vanessa generated constantly. So I washed her clothes, hating myself with every garment I put in the washing machine, hating my cowardice, my inability to defend myself, my fear of ending up completely alone. Michael finally found a job, but it was a part-time job that barely paid $800 a month. I thought maybe that would change things, that maybe now they could leave and I would recover my house, my life. But instead of looking for a place of their own, Vanessa announced that money would be used to improve the house even more. They bought a huge television for the living room, a very expensive set of pots, new curtains for all the windows, everything with that money that supposedly was so they could become independent. "And when do you plan to move out?" I asked them one night during dinner. The question floated in the air like a bomb about to explode. Vanessa stopped eating and stared at me. "Move out? Why would we move out, Linda? We are perfect here. Besides, you need us. You are an older woman living alone. It is dangerous. You should be thankful we are here to take care of you, take care of me. They were destroying me little by little, and they called it care. I do not need you," I said with the firmest voice I could. "I lived alone for 3 years after Robert died, and I was perfectly fine. You said it was temporary." Michael finally spoke, but his words were worse than his silence. "Mom, do not be selfish. Vanessa is right. At your age, you should not be alone. Besides, it is my house too, or did you already forget I am your son?" Selfish. He called me selfish for wanting my own house back, for wanting to live without them controlling my every movement, every breath. I felt something inside me break definitively, that something that had been holding me up, that hope that Michael would eventually wake up and see what they were doing to his mother. "You are right," I said, getting up from the table. "It is your house too. Someday it will be all yours. I hope it is worth it." I left my plate unfinished and went to my room. I heard how Vanessa told Michael, "Your mother is so dramatic, always making scenes." And Michael laughed. My son laughed at my pain. I started avoiding them. I left my room only when it was absolutely necessary. I ate as little as possible so as not to use the kitchen during their schedules. I became a ghost in my own house, invisible, silent, non-existent. And still, Vanessa found ways to remind me that I was the problem. "Linda, your presence makes Michael tense," she told me one day. "Could you try to be less obvious? When you are in the common areas, try not to draw attention. Less obvious." They wanted me to disappear completely, to stop existing for their comfort. One afternoon while I was cleaning the bathroom in my assigned time, I found papers hidden behind the mirror. Legal documents with Michael and Vanessa's names. I read them with trembling hands and confirmed my worst suspicions. Vanessa had made Michael sign a broad power of attorney documents that gave her control over medical decisions, financial decisions, and even over the house if something happened to me. There was also a document that pretended to be a care agreement where I supposedly accepted that they stay in the house in exchange for them taking care of me in my old age. The document had my signature, but I had never signed it. It was a crude forgery, but probably enough to create legal problems if someone questioned it. My head was spinning. Vanessa was not only taking my house and my son, she was preparing the legal ground to keep everything. She was a calculating scammer, and Michael was her unwitting accomplice. Or maybe not so unwitting. I no longer knew what to think of my own son. I put the documents back exactly where I found them. I could not confront them yet because I did not know what to do. I did not have money for a lawyer. I did not have anyone to turn to. My family had died or lived far away. My friends had distanced themselves in these months because Vanessa always found excuses so I would not go out. I was completely alone and trapped. That night, while I lay in my bed looking at the ceiling, I thought about Robert. I thought about how he would have handled this situation. Robert was a man of action, not words. He would never have allowed anyone to humiliate us like this. And in that moment, lying in the darkness of my prison, something changed inside me. A spark of rage, of dignity, of strength that I thought lost forever. I still did not know how, but I was going to get my life back. I was going to get my house back. And if that meant losing Michael in the process, then maybe I had already lost him a long time ago. Maybe the son I knew died the day he decided to choose a cruel woman over his own mother. The night of the incident in the refrigerator arrived as the straw that broke the camel's back. It had been an especially difficult day. Vanessa had made me clean the whole house because she would receive visitors the next day, friends of hers who would come to have coffee as if my living room were a social hall she owned. I spent hours scrubbing floors, dusting furniture, organizing every corner until my knees and back hurt. When I finished, it was almost 11 at night. Vanessa inspected my work with a critical eye, running her finger along the window frames, looking for dust as if she were a ruthless supervisor. "I suppose it is acceptable," she said finally, without even looking at me. "You can go to sleep," as if she were giving me permission to rest in my own house after cleaning for her guests. I went to my room exhausted, but I could not sleep. My stomach roared with hunger. I had eaten almost nothing all day because Vanessa had used the kitchen the whole time, preparing elegant snacks for her meeting the next day. My assigned schedules had been completely ignored, but I said nothing because I had already learned that protesting only made things worse. Around 2 a.m, the hunger was unbearable. I thought at that hour everyone would be asleep and I could go down silently to look for something to eat. Just a piece of bread, a little cheese, whatever, to calm the emptiness in my stomach. I got up carefully, put on my slippers, and left my room walking on tiptoes like a thief in my own house. The kitchen was dark and silent. I breathed relieved, thinking I had managed to go down without waking anyone. I approached the refrigerator and put my hand on the handle. It was at that moment, just when I was starting to open it, that I felt the blow. A dry and strong slap on my hand that made me let go immediately from the pain and surprise. "Where do you think you are going without permission?" Vanessa's voice came out of the darkness like the hiss of a snake. She turned on the kitchen light, and there she was with her pink silk robe and an expression of fury on her face. My hand burned where she had hit me, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt. "I am hungry," I said with a voice barely audible. I just wanted to eat something. I hated myself for sounding so weak, so pleading. Vanessa crossed her arms and blocked the refrigerator with her body, as if it were a treasure she had to protect from a thief. At 2 a.m, without asking me for permission. I already told you that food in this house is managed. Linda, you cannot come to eat whenever you feel like it. It is my refrigerator, I whispered, feeling tears starting to accumulate in my eyes. My food, my house. But even while I said those words, I knew they sounded hollow without power. Vanessa laughed a cruel laugh that echoed in the silent kitchen. "Your house. We will see about that." I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Michael appeared disheveled and with sleepy eyes. "What is happening? Why are you shouting?" I looked at my son with hope, thinking that maybe this time, this one time, he would defend me, that he would see the absurdity of the situation, an elderly mother being slapped for trying to eat in her own house. "Your mother was trying to steal food from the refrigerator without permission," said Vanessa before I could speak. "I have already explained the rules to her 1,000 times, but she does not listen. Steal. She had called me a thief in my own kitchen." I looked at Michael pleadingly, expecting him to say something, anything. Mom said Michael with a tired sigh. "Is it necessary to do this in the middle of the night? You already know the rules. If you were hungry, you could have waited until tomorrow." My legs began to tremble. My own son was blaming me for being hungry, for wanting to eat in my own house, for existing. "Michael, please." My voice broke. "It is ridiculous." She slapped me for trying to open the refrigerator. "Do you not see how sick this is?" I extended my hand, showing him the red mark that was starting to form. "Look at me. Son, look at me, and tell me this is okay." But Michael did not look at my hand. Instead, he looked at Vanessa, who returned a significant look that I could not decipher. And then my son said the words that would destroy any hope I had left. "My wife is the owner of the house now. Even to breathe, you need to ask her for permission." The world stopped. "Even to breathe." The words floated in the air like sharp knives sticking into my heart again and again. My son had just told me that I had no right even to the air I breathed without his wife's permission. In my own house, the house I built with his father, the house where he was born, where he took his first steps, where I grew as a mother. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. She had won completely. She had taken my son and turned him into her weapon against me. "See, Linda, even Michael understands how things work now. The faster you accept it, the better for everyone." She approached the refrigerator, opened it calmly, and took out a bottle of water. She drank in front of me, slowly savoring not only the water but her victory. "Now go to your room," she ordered, closing the refrigerator. "And the next time you are hungry in unauthorized hours, hold it or ask for permission properly." Michael nodded, supporting her. "Mom, go to sleep. We will talk tomorrow." But I knew that tomorrow we would not talk about anything. Tomorrow would be the same as today, and the next day too. I went up the stairs feeling that every step cost me a piece of my soul. I entered my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, and it was there in the darkness of my prison where finally everything changed. Something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I did not break in defeat. I broke in clarity. I saw my life with brutal sharpness. I saw that I had been begging for love, begging for respect, begging for a place in my own house. I had allowed them to reduce me to nothing, to turn me into a pleading shadow, and all out of fear. Fear of losing Michael, fear of being left alone, fear of admitting that my son was no longer the boy I knew. But that night, with my hand still burning from the slap, with an empty stomach and a shattered heart, I made a decision. A cold, clear, and definitive decision. I was no longer going to beg. I was no longer going to plead. I was no longer going to allow them to treat me like trash in my own house. I got up and turned on the light in my room. I looked under my bed for the box where I kept my most precious things. Inside, there was a little money I had been saving in secret $20 and $50 bills I hid whenever I could. It was not much, maybe $300 in total, but it was something. I also took out an old notebook and began to write. I wrote everything that had happened in these months, every humiliation, every abuse, every moment Michael chose Vanessa over me. I did not know what that record would serve me for, but something told me I should document everything. While I wrote, tears fell on the paper, staining some words, but I did not stop. I wrote until my hand hurt, until I emptied all the poison accumulated in my chest. And when I finished, when there were no more words to write, I knew exactly what I had to do. I was not going to confront them. I was not going to fight. I was not going to give them the show of seeing me broken and pleading once more. I was going to do something they would never expect from me, something that would hurt them much more than any scream or complaint. I was going to leave. I was going to disappear from their lives and leave them with exactly what they wanted, the house, without me. I did not sleep the rest of the night. I stayed sitting on my bed, watching through the window how the dark sky slowly transformed into a gray dawn. Every minute that passed, my decision became more solid, more clear. There were no longer doubts. There was no longer fear. There was only a cold and definitive certainty. I had to get out of there before they destroyed me completely. At 6 in the morning, when I heard Michael and Vanessa getting up, I went into action. I waited for them to enter the bathroom and locked my door. I took an old suitcase out of the closet, the one Robert and I used on our last trip together to the beach. I ran my fingers over the worn surface, remembering better days, days where love and respect were not a luxury, but something natural. I packed the essentials clothes for a week, my personal documents, the photographs I kept in the shoebox, Robert's letters. Everything that really mattered fit in a small suitcase. 40 years of life reduced to a few objects I could carry alone. I realized that everything else, the furniture, the appliances, the material things, meant nothing without dignity. I put the money I had saved in my purse along with my medications and the house keys. I looked around my room for the last time. Those walls had witnessed so many important moments. Sleepless nights taking care of Michael when he was a baby, late-night conversations with Robert, planning our future tears shed after his death. Now they were just walls that enclosed my suffering. I heard Michael and Vanessa going down to breakfast. Perfect. I heard them arguing about what to eat, heard Vanessa giving orders, and Michael obeying. That morning ritual that had completely excluded me. I waited a few more minutes until I was sure they were busy in the kitchen. I grabbed my suitcase and my purse. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. I opened my door slowly, grateful that the hinges made no noise. I walked down the hallway toward the stairs with my heart beating so hard I thought they would hear me. But they were too absorbed in their world, in their bubble, where I did not exist. I went down the stairs step by step, holding my breath. The front door was just a few feet away. A few more steps and I would be free. But just before leaving, I stopped. I could not just leave. They needed to know that this time was different, that it was not a tantrum or drama. It was a final decision. I left my suitcase by the door and went to the hall table where we always left the mail. I took a piece of paper and a pen from my purse. My hand was trembling slightly, but my mind was completely clear. I began to write with firm and calm handwriting. Michael and Vanessa, I am leaving. Do not try to look for me. The house is all yours now, just as you wanted. Enjoy everything you wished so much to take from me. But remember that a house without love is just an empty building. We will see how long it takes for that truth to reach you. The taxes are due next month. They are $1,200. Water and electricity are paid at the bank every 15th. The heating needs maintenance before winter. It costs around $300. I hope Michael's part-time job is enough to cover everything. Linda. I reread the letter. It was perfect, short, cold, informative, without tears, without begging, without drama, just facts. I left it in the center of the table where they could not miss it. Then I grabbed my suitcase and opened the front door. The fresh morning air hit my face like a slap of reality. I did not look back. If I did, if I saw my house one more time, I might waver. I closed the door behind me with a soft click and walked down the path toward the street. Every step I felt lighter, as if I were leaving behind not only a house, but invisible chains that had been drowning me. I did not have a specific plan, but I did have a place to go. Betty, my childhood friend, lived on the other side of town. We had drifted apart in recent months because Vanessa always made excuses when I wanted to visit her, that Michael needed me, that there were things to do in the house, that it was dangerous for me to go out alone. Now I understood it was just another way to isolate me, to cut me off from any external support. I walked 3 blocks to the bus stop. The sun was rising completely now, painting the sky in orange and pink colors. It was beautiful, and I realized I had not stopped to watch a sunrise in months. I had been so consumed by survival inside that house that I had forgotten a world existed outside. The bus arrived, and I got on. The driver looked at me with curiosity, seeing my suitcase, but said nothing. I sat next to the window and watched how the streets of my neighborhood passed in front of me. I knew every corner, every store, every tree. I had lived there all my adult life. I was leaving behind not only a house, but an entire life. But strangely, I did not feel sadness. I felt something similar to peace. Like when you take off a shoe that has been hurting you all day and finally your feet can breathe. The constant oppression, the perpetual fear, the daily humiliation, all that was being left behind with every mile the bus traveled. I arrived at Betty's house after 40 minutes. It was a modest but cozy house with flowers in the front garden and a rocking chair on the porch. Betty always had good taste for making any space feel like home. I rang the bell feeling nervous for the first time since I left. What if she did not want to receive me? What if she thought I was crazy? The door opened and there was Betty, with her silver hair in a bun and her kind eyes behind glasses. Seeing me standing there with my suitcase, her expression changed from surprise to concern. Linda. My God, what happened? She said nothing more. She simply opened her arms and I collapsed into them. I cried like I had not cried in months. I cried for everything lost for my son I no longer recognized, for the house I left behind, for the woman I used to be and almost forgot. Betty held me without asking questions, letting me empty all the accumulated pain. When finally I could speak, I told her everything, every detail, every humiliation, every moment of brokenness. Betty listened in silence, her face showing more and more indignation. When I finished my story, she took my hands and said with a firmness that comforted me, "You stay here as long as you need. This is your house now, and that son of yours and that viper of his wife are going to regret treating you like that. You will see." I settled into Betty's guest room. It was small but cozy with light green curtains and a bed with a soft duvet. That night I slept deeper than in months. There were no nightmares, no startles every time I heard a noise, only a peaceful and restful sleep. Meanwhile, in my old house, Michael and Vanessa were waking up to a new reality. I imagined the scene. Vanessa shouting my name, waiting for the breakfast that never arrived. Michael going up to look for me and finding my room empty. The initial panic, the confusion, and finally finding the letter. I imagined them reading it, maybe even laughing at first, thinking it was a tantrum and that I would return soon. But something would tell them this time was different, that there was no turning back, that finally they had pushed too far, and the submissive mother, the convenient mother-in-law, had disappeared forever. And most importantly now, they would have to face the reality that I had been sustaining alone all this time. The expenses, the responsibilities, the bills that arrived every month, all that they took for granted while treating me like trash. Now it was their problem. The first week at Betty's house was like waking up from a long and exhausting nightmare. Every morning I opened my eyes expecting to hear Vanessa's voice ordering me something, but there was only peaceful silence and the singing of birds outside. Betty treated me with a sweetness I had forgotten existed, preparing coffee in the mornings and asking me how I had slept without expecting anything in return. "You do not have to do anything," she told me the third day when she found me washing the breakfast dishes. "Just rest, Linda. Recover." But I needed to feel useful. I needed to prove to myself that I still had value beyond being someone's emotional punching bag. So I insisted on helping with household chores. But this time was different. I did it because I wanted to, not because they forced me. My phone started ringing the second day. It was Michael. I let it ring until it stopped. Then came the messages. First they were confused. "Mom, where are you? We are worried." Then they became more urgent. "We need to talk. Please answer." And finally they showed their true nature. "The bills are arriving. We do not know what to do. You have to come back." I did not answer any. Every message that arrived was a confirmation that I had made the right decision. They did not ask how I was, if I was okay, if I had somewhere to sleep or what to eat. They only worried about the bills, the responsibilities, everything I had been handling alone while they enjoyed my house, like ungrateful parasites. Betty told me Michael had gone to look for me at her house on the fourth day. He rang the bell like crazy, she told me while we drank coffee in her living room. I told him I did not know where you were, and that even if I knew, I would not tell him. He looked desperate, Linda. But it was not the desperation of a son worried about his mother. It was the desperation of someone who just realized they lost their safety net. She was right. Michael's messages confirmed it. At first, they thought they could handle them alone. Michael's part-time job paid $800 a month. The house taxes were $1,200. Already, right there, the math did not work. And that without counting the electricity, the water, the gas, the food, the gas, and all the expenses Vanessa generated with her constant whims. Vanessa tried to call me once. Just once. Her voice on the voicemail was icy. Linda, I know you are being dramatic and looking for attention. When you finish with your tantrum, come back home. But do not think this will change the rules. Things will continue to be as I say. I deleted the message feeling a mixture of indignation and satisfaction. She still did not understand anything, still believed she had control. In the second week, Betty convinced me to block their numbers. You do not need to read that, Linda. It only hurts you, and they do not deserve even a second more of your time. So I blocked Michael, I blocked Vanessa, and it was like finally closing a door that had been open, letting in cold drafts for months. I began to recover slowly. Betty took me to walk in the park every afternoon. At first, I got tired quickly. Months of constant stress had weakened my body more than I thought, but little by little, my strength returned. Something more important also returned, my smile. One day, Betty took a picture of me while we fed the ducks at the lake, and when I saw it, I was surprised. That smiling woman in the photo was me, but it had been so long since I looked like that, I almost did not recognize myself. You look 10 years younger, commented Betty. It is incredible what peace of mind does. She was right. The wrinkles around my eyes seemed less deep. My posture was more upright, even my voice sounded different, stronger and more secure. I was finding myself again after months of being lost. Meanwhile, as I learned later from a neighbor Betty found at the supermarket, things in my old house were crumbling rapidly. The first bill they could not pay was the taxes. The notice from the municipality arrived with the warning of seizure if they did not pay in 30 days. Michael tried to ask for a loan, but with his precarious job and no solid credit history, no bank lent to him. Vanessa began to pressure Michael to get more work. How is it possible that you cannot maintain a house? She yelled at him, according to the neighbor who heard them fighting through the open windows. You are useless, just like your mother. The irony was delicious. Now Michael was experiencing the same treatment I had endured, and Vanessa showed her true nature without the filter she used when I was present. The water was next. By not paying 2 months in a row, they cut it off. Suddenly, the house Vanessa had been redecorating with so much care had no water to bathe, to cook, to wash her expensive clothes. They had to carry buckets from a neighbor's house who took pity on them temporarily. The princess who mocked my old junk was now carrying water, like in a rural village. Food became a problem. Vanessa was used to buying expensive organic products, premium cuts of meat, imported cheeses. With $800 a month and bills piling up, those luxuries disappeared. They started eating cheap noodles and rice every day. The same Vanessa who controlled my every bite was now going hungry because of her own stupidity. Michael tried to get a second job, but no one hired him. He was desperate, stressed, probably without sleeping well. And Vanessa, instead of supporting him, blamed him for everything. This is your fault, she told him. If you had been more of a man, if you could have supported me, we would not be like this. Your mother ruined us by leaving. That part the neighbor told me with indignation. I threw in your son's face that the fault was theirs, Linda. I told him they had treated his father like trash, and now they were reaping what they sowed. You should have seen his face. I imagined the scene and felt a small satisfaction. It was not revenge I sought, it was justice. And justice was finally catching up to them. In the third week, I received a certified letter. It was from a lawyer representing Michael. I opened the envelope with trembling hands, fearing the worst. The letter was a formal request for me to return to fulfill my family obligations and a veiled threat that if I did not, they would take legal action to protect the family patrimony. I showed the letter to Betty. She immediately called her nephew, who was a lawyer. He read it and laughed. "This has no legal validity. They cannot force you to live in your own house or pay the bills if you do not want to. In fact, they are the intruders from the moment she left. She has every right to evict them if she wants. Evict them." I had not thought of that. The house was still mine. It was in my name. I had left, but they had no legal right to stay there without my permission. Betty's lawyer explained that I could start an eviction process immediately. It would take about 2 months, but the house would be completely yours again. I thought about that all night. Did I want the house back? Did I want to return to that place full of recent bitter memories? The house where my son betrayed me, where they hit me for trying to eat, where I lost my dignity little by little. On the other hand, it was my house. The house I built with Robert where we lived our best years. I decided to wait. Not out of weakness, but out of strategy. I wanted Michael and Vanessa to feel completely the weight of their actions. I wanted them to hit rock bottom to understand that the life I had been sustaining for them was not easy or free. And above all, I wanted Michael to wake up from Vanessa's manipulation and see what he had really lost. At the end of the month, the electricity cut-off notice arrived. The house was left completely in the dark, without water, without light, with debts piling up and no money to pay anything. The fantasy Vanessa had built crumbled brick by brick, and Michael finally began to see the truth he had been avoiding for months. It was in the 4th week when everything exploded definitively. Betty arrived one afternoon with fresh news from her network of gossiping neighbors. "Linda, you are not going to believe what happened," she said with eyes shining with excitement. Vanessa left Michael. She left the house with her suitcases and told him he was a failure who could not even keep a roof over their heads. I stood paralyzed, processing the information. Vanessa had abandoned Michael. The woman who swore to love him in good times and bad, who manipulated him to betray his own mother, who turned him into her obedient puppet, had left him the moment he stopped being useful to her. The irony was so perfect it almost hurt. And Michael, I asked, without being able to help it. Despite everything he had done to me, he was still my son, and a part of me still worried about him. "He is destroyed," replied Betty. "The neighbor says he cries all day. The house is a mess without light or water. He is still there like a ghost, not knowing what to do." That night, I could not sleep. I imagined Michael alone in that dark house, probably hungry without money, abandoned by the woman for whom he sacrificed his mother. A part of me wanted to run to help him, hug him, like when he was a boy and had nightmares. But another part, the part that had grown during these weeks, knew that if I did, I would be validating everything he did to me. I would be telling him he could treat me like trash, and that I would always be there to pick up the pieces. On the 5th day after Vanessa left, Michael appeared at Betty's house. He arrived at dusk, haggard and dirty, with deep, dark circles and wrinkled clothes. Betty warned me through the intercom. "He is here. Do you want to see him?" My heart beat fast. This was the moment I had been avoiding and anticipating at the same time. "Tell him to come in," I replied with a trembling voice. I sat in the living room waiting for him, trying to prepare myself for what would come. When he entered, I almost did not recognize him. My son, who had always been meticulous with his appearance, looked like a vagrant. He had a beard of several days, greasy and disheveled hair, a stained shirt. But what impacted me most were his eyes. They were red and swollen, full of a pain I knew very well. "Mom," he said with a broken voice. That word I had not heard from his lips in months sounded strange and familiar at the same time. He stood at the entrance of the living room as if he did not know if he had permission to approach. I said nothing. I just looked at him, waiting, needing him to take the first step to say what he had to say. "I'm sorry," he finally whispered. "I am so sorry. Mom, you were right about everything. About Vanessa, about what she was doing to me, about what we did to you." Tears began to roll down his cheeks, leaving clean trails on his dirty face. I was an idiot. I was the worst son in the world. I treated you like trash when you only gave me love all my life. I wanted to run to him, hug him, tell him everything was forgiven, but I remained seated firm. And what changed, Michael? I asked with a calm but cold voice. Do you apologize because you really understand what you did, or because Vanessa left you and now you are alone? The question floated in the air like a sharp knife. Michael collapsed, literally fell to his knees on the living room floor, sobbing like a child. You are right. I realized everything when she left. She told me I was useless, that I was never worth anything, that she only tolerated me because she thought you would have more money. She said she wasted her time with me. His words came out broken between sobs. And while she told me all that, the only thing I could think of was how I told you exactly the same thing. How I treated you worse than a stranger. She hit my hand for trying to eat in my own house, I said, without emotion in my voice. And you told her she was the owner of the house, that even to breathe I needed her permission. Do you remember that, Michael? He nodded, unable to look at me, shame painted on every line of his face. Every day I think about that, he said through tears. Every day I hate myself for having said those words. Dad must be rolling in his grave for what I became. I betrayed everything you taught me. I betrayed the only person who was always there for me. His pain was real, I could see it. But pain did not erase months of abuse and humiliation. Do you know what I felt that night? I asked him, and for the first time my voice trembled. I felt my son had died, that the boy I raised, cared for, loved with all my heart had disappeared, and in his place was a cruel stranger. I died 1,000 times in those months, Michael. 1,000 times I wish not to wake up every morning, because the pain of living in my own house, being treated like that, was unbearable. I know, Mom. I know, and I have no excuses, he said, finally lifting his gaze toward me. Vanessa manipulated me, but I let her. I chose to believe her instead of you. I decided every day to treat you badly because it was easier than confronting her. I am completely guilty, and I do not expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. I finally see everything I lost. We stayed in silence for a long moment. Betty had disappeared discreetly, leaving us alone. I looked at my son kneeling on the floor, destroyed and regretful, and I felt a mixture of emotions so complex I could not separate them. Love, pain, rage, compassion, all mixed in an impossible knot in my chest. Apologies are not enough, I finally said. You cannot destroy a person for months and expect a few tears to fix everything. Michael nodded. I know. I am not asking you to come back or forgive me now. I just needed to tell you I am sorry and that you are right to hate me. I do not hate you, Michael. I admitted, feeling my own tears starting to form. That is the worst of all. After everything you did to me, I still love you because you are my son. But I do not trust you anymore. I do not know if I will ever be able to trust you again. Those words broke us both because it was the most painful truth that existed between us. What are you going to do now? I asked him after a moment. Michael shrugged his shoulders, defeated. I do not know. The house is without light or water. I owe 3 months of taxes and 2 of services. My job barely pays to eat. I will probably end up losing the house anyway. There was acceptance in his voice, as if he knew he deserved to lose everything. It is my house, Michael, I reminded him gently. It is in my name. You are not going to lose it because technically it was never yours. I saw him process that information, realizing another layer of his stupidity. He had fought for a house that was not even his legally. He had betrayed his mother for something he never had. I can start the eviction process if I want. I continued. My lawyer says in 2 months you would be out and the house would be completely mine again. I saw fear cross his face. Are you going to do it? His voice was barely a whisper. I do not know yet, I replied honestly. Part of me wants to get my house back. Another part never wants to return to that place full of painful memories. Michael stayed silent, not daring to ask for anything, not expecting anything. That humility, that acceptance of the consequences of his acts was new. Maybe for the first time in his life he was facing reality without anyone protecting him. "Betty prepared you something to eat," I told him, pointing toward the kitchen. "Go eat something. You look terrible." "I do not deserve your kindness," he said without moving. "Probably not," I agreed. "But I am not being kind for you. I do it because I am not like Vanessa. I do not abandon people when they are at their worst moment, even when they have hurt me." It was a silent lesson, a demonstration of the difference between real love and the manipulation he confused for so long. Michael ate in silence in the kitchen while I remained in the living room processing everything. When he finished, he stood at the door ready to leave. "Thank you for listening to me, Mom, and thank you for the food. I know I do not deserve any of this." I nodded, saying nothing more. I saw him walk away down the street with his shoulders slumped, a shadow of the man he used to be. 2 months passed since that visit from Michael, 2 months in which I had to make the most difficult decisions of my life. I did not return to the house immediately. I needed time to heal, to recover the pieces of myself I had lost in those months of torment. Betty was my anchor during all that process, reminding me every day that I deserved respect and dignity. Michael did not appear again, but sent short messages every week. He asked for nothing, just updates. I got a second job at a gas station. I paid the water. It works again. I cleaned the whole house. It is like you liked it. They were simple messages showing genuine effort for the first time in a long time. But I was still not ready to respond. It was Betty's lawyer who finally helped me see things clearly. "Mrs. Linda, that house is yours. You have 3 options. Recover it and live there again, recover it and sell it to start over somewhere else, or keep it and rent it while living somewhere else. But what you cannot do is let fear decide for you." He was right. I had fled my house, but I was still letting that place control me. I was still a prisoner even though I was not physically there anymore. So I made a decision. I would return, but on my own terms. The house was mine, and it was time to claim it completely. I asked the lawyer to prepare a legal document. It was not an eviction, but an agreement. Michael could stay in the house under very specific conditions. He would pay a symbolic rent of $200 monthly that would go directly to a savings account in his name, so that when he was ready, he could truly become independent. He had to keep the house in perfect condition, and more importantly, he had to attend therapy to work on how he had been manipulated and how to repair our relationship. When I presented the document to Michael in a neutral coffee shop, his hands trembled reading it. "You are giving me another chance," he asked, with eyes full of tears. "It is not a chance, Michael," I clarified, with a firm voice. "It is a contractual agreement. If you fail on any of these points, you leave the house immediately and without discussion. Do you understand?" "I understand," he nodded with fervor. "And Mom, about the rent money, I can pay you more. Now I have 2 jobs, and—" I interrupted him, raising my hand. "It is not about the money. It is about you learning to value things, to understand that nothing is free and that actions have consequences. The $200 are symbolic but important." He signed the document without hesitation, but I did not return to the house yet. Instead, I decided to stay with Betty a few months more. I needed Michael to demonstrate with actions, not just words, that he had really changed. And to my surprise, he did. He sent photos of the clean house every week, receipts of payment for services, even certificates of his therapy sessions. In his therapy, according to what he told me later, he finally processed how Vanessa had manipulated him, how she identified his insecurities, his unemployment, his vulnerability, and used them to turn him into her puppet, how she isolated his mother from him systematically until he could no longer see reality. The therapist made him understand that, although he had been manipulated, he was still responsible for his actions. That distinction was crucial. 3 months after signing the agreement, I finally returned to my house. Michael received me at the door, visibly nervous. The house was spotless. He had cleaned every corner, had repaired things that were broken. He had even put fresh flowers in the vase at the entrance, the one Vanessa had thrown in the trash, and that he recovered. "Welcome home, Mom," he said with a trembling voice. I walked through the rooms, seeing all the changes. My favorite armchair was back in its original place. The photographs Vanessa had stored were back on the walls. My closet had all my clothes perfectly organized. He had erased every trace of Vanessa from the house, as if she had never existed. But the most important thing was that he had recovered the spirit of home the house had before. It no longer felt like a prison, but like a refuge. "You did a good job," I told him, and saw his shoulders relax with relief. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Mom. I know I do not deserve it, but I swear I am not going to let you down." The following months were of slow reconstruction. Michael and I did not go back to being what we were before because that was impossible. Something had broken between us that could never be repaired completely. But we built something new, something different, a relationship based on mutual respect, on clear limits, on honesty. I was no longer the mother who did everything for her son and the son who took it for granted. We were two adults learning to coexist with the scars of the past. Michael worked hard at his 2 jobs. He saved every penny he could. 6 months after the agreement, he came home with news. "Mom, I think I am ready to look for my own apartment. I have saved enough for the deposit and the first month's rent." I felt a mixture of pride and relief. "Are you sure?" I asked him. "Completely sure. It is time for me to be truly independent. It is time for me to prove I can live my own life without being a burden to anyone." The day Michael moved to his small apartment, I helped him pack. It was strange and bittersweet. This time the separation was healthy, necessary, chosen for the right reasons. "Visit me often," I told him while carrying the last box to his car. "And Mom," he replied, hugging me, "thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave you all the reasons in the world to do so. Now I live alone in my house, as it always should have been after Robert died. Betty comes to visit me 3 times a week, and sometimes we stay up late talking and laughing. Michael comes to dinner every Sunday. Our relationship is not perfect, but it is real, and it is built on honest foundations. He is still in therapy, working on his problems. I also started therapy to heal the wounds those months left me. Sometimes I think about Vanessa and wonder where she is. According to what I learned, she found another vulnerable man with money and is repeating the same pattern. I hope that person has the strength Michael did not have to escape in time. But it is no longer my problem, nor my concern. She is a closed chapter in our lives. What I learned from this whole experience is that love without respect is not love, it is disguised abuse. That family does not give you the right to mistreat. That sometimes getting away from the people you love is the only way to save yourself and give them the opportunity to grow. And above all, I learned that it is never too late to recover your dignity, no matter how long you have lost it. My house is my sanctuary again. The walls no longer hold echoes of humiliation, but of music I play when I want, of laughter with Betty, of honest conversations with Michael when he comes to visit. I recovered my life. I recovered my space, and more importantly, I recovered myself. That night, when I tried to open the refrigerator and received a slap, seems now a distant bad dream, a reminder of how low a person can fall when they forget their worth. But it is also a reminder of the strength I found when finally I said enough, when I chose my well-being over the fear of loneliness. I am 62 years old, and I am starting over. Some would say it is too late to start again, but I know it is never too late to choose dignity. It is never too late to claim your life. And never, never is late to remember that you deserve respect, especially in your own house, especially from the people who say they love you. This is my story. It is not a story of revenge, but of recovery. It is not about punishing, but about healing. And if someone who is going through something similar reads this, I want them to know this. You have the power to change your situation. You may be afraid, you may feel weak, but inside you there is a strength you do not even imagine. You just need to take the first step. The rest comes after. Today I open my refrigerator when I want. I eat when I am hungry. I breathe without asking for permission. And every time I do these simple things, I remember the price I paid for this freedom, and I smile. Because finally, after all, I came back home. No only to the physical house, but to myself.